question answers, फिर हम ये करेंगे, and then you get ready for starting this one. Hare Krishna. So we can get started with a little bit of kirtan, just to get everyone back together and get some energy in the body after lunch. Jaya Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Jaya Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Oh Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Oh Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Oh Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Oh Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Oh Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayo Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Madan Mohan, Radhe. Jayo Radha Madan Mohan, Radha Madan Mohan, Radhe. Jaya Lakshmi Nrsimha, Jaya Lakshmi Nrsimha, Lakshmi Nrsimha, Jaya Lakshmi Nrsimha. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Radha Madan Mohan ki jai, Shri Shri Gaur Hari ki jai, Shri Shri Lakshmi Shingadev ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. So thank you all for coming for the second part of the seminar here. As you know, this second part is going to be completing the section Books are the Basis, the academic side of Krishna conscious education, and then moving on to Preaching is the Essence, which is social life and discipline and things like that. So, just before we broke for lunch, we talked about the heart of the Krishna conscious educational system. The academic side is the study of Srimad Bhagavatam with children, and the importance of doing that from an early age so that they develop a strong attachment and attraction to the Srimad Bhagavatam. And we discussed the profound spiritual as well as material benefits that come from that in the form of character development, attachment to Lord Krishna, understanding of Krishna conscious philosophy, critical thinking and reasoning abilities, vocabulary, comprehension, composition, writing, and all kinds of other good things. So what we want to do is, for the next 10 minutes or so, see if you have any questions specifically about the study of Bhagavatam. I know there were some questions left over from the previous section, or general questions, but let's try to keep them to Srimad Bhagavatam in particular. If you have any questions, we can take them at this point. Then we'll continue onward in this section, and then at the end of this section, we'll open it up to general questions again. Okay? Yes.
My question is how much you give the time to read Srimad Bhagavatam, and whether by the time they should study already the Bhagavad Gita or some basic books so that they understand Srimad Bhagavatam. What is your insight?
The nice thing about homeschooling is that there's no bell ringing telling you the class is over. That's one of the best parts of the homeschooling. In other words, if the child is, if you're having a very interesting discussion at a specific area in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we can continue, and naturally the class becomes a bit longer. And there are some days when the topic is not so much to discuss, then we kind of end the class early or we move on. So our focus was, was Srimad Bhagavatam. In other words, I tried to teach them all the language arts through the Srimad Bhagavatam, because like I said earlier, the stories are what attracts them and keeps them going. However, we also did Bhagavad Gita, but not so like we would do maybe a verse a day, and we discuss it with the purport, just one verse. And but Bhagavatam we did longer, so sometimes our classes on Bhagavatam would last an hour, or sometimes 2 hours, sometimes even longer, like 3 hours. But we would take breaks. For children, they need a little break, like a break for a snack or run around, come back again. Because as we will be talking as we go on to the slides, we will be talking about the 5 R's that we covered in our homeschooling. And basically, 3 of the 5 was covered in Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's was the basis of our curriculum. Is that answer? Okay. Yeah.
Mataji, when you started homeschooling and you started reading the books of Bhagavatam, so how you have teached your experience? If you have any question, and means while reading the Bhagavatam, if you have any doubts in that, how to explain the kids with your kids, because it's very critical to read that Bhagavatam. So reading that kind of books and getting some kind of doubts in that. So how you teach your kids, and what way have you given to them?
Mm-hmm. Yes, actually, like I was telling earlier, I actually had I hadn't read the Shastra before teaching my children, so I was also reading the first time. I was a new devotee, and it was such a wonderful way for me to reach Shastra. I don't know if I would have ever been able to do it otherwise. But so the doubts also came, even for myself, where I could not answer some of the things that was coming up. And invariably we would always keep reading, and then we would go, like I said, if the doubts came, if some question could not be answered, we went into the pulpits. And I don't know if you've ever had experience of reading Srila Prabhupada's books. You have a doubt, you have a question, and somehow or the other miraculously it'll be answered in the next pulpit or maybe a few pulpits afterwards. So we always ended up with that experience where we could find the answers, or we could discuss. And if it doesn't get covered at that, it's not necessary that we understand everything to the detail. The level of the children, it can go into deep only to a certain level. And it's a fact that every time you read the Shastra, you get newer and newer meanings, and it's always fresh. So if they finish, suppose the entire Bhagavatam, the 12 cantos in 1 year, they can start again. And each time they read, it's going to be a better meaning. Of course, they may not finish it in 1 year, but whenever they finish it, then you start and reading again, and definitely the understanding will be deeper and better.
And one more thing, how you manage with the because while homeschooling and you are the housewife also, so how you managed about kids involving and household things, and how you manage both the things, because that is also main important.
Yes,
also.
Yes.
So how you have managed whole the day, and tell me the tips, because that also we can understand, because how you at what time you got up, and at what time you have given your children's at what time you given the time slot for the studies and other activities and everything, and how you managed everything. Just I would like to know that, because that is also basic important for us.
Yes. Yeah, it's the nice thing about homeschooling is it can be flexible. So like I said, so we would start the day with a morning program. Even if the children for some reason due to a festival they had late nights, they would get up and we would still have a morning program, and then they'd have a little breakfast, and then we would sit down and read Srimad Bhagavatam. And again, it was flexible, 1 hour, 2 hours. And then we would, we would see what the day schedule goes. Sometimes, because we were running a preaching center, we would have somewhere to go, like we arranged a preaching program, or somebody would be coming. So we would adjust according to that. But we kind of made sure that I had an idea, that this is what I want covered for that day. And the details were very flexible. In other words, if something was going on in the morning, I would do it in the afternoon, like that. So for some people, flexibility is not something they really like. They would like to see it more structured, and we can do it like that too. There are some homeschooling people parents who are doing very successfully a very structured, time-oriented method where they have particular time for particular subjects, and they give the homeschooling 4 hours every day, and they finish it. And by 2 o'clock they're done. And even that works, and they have a specific area in the house where convert it into a classroom with desk and paper and pencil, like that. And for people who like it like that, and who and the situation arranges for that, then it's okay. So homeschooling can work in either way, in a very flexible way or a very structured way. Yes.
Yeah, I had a question. So, did you do a systematic study of Srimad Bhagavatam, like starting from Canto 1, Chapter 1?
Yes, I did. Actually, we started from the first canto, and a lot of mothers have that question, that how will my children sit through all these, the first canto, because it's very highly philosophical. Then the reason, because I was doing homeschooling, I knew I wanted to cover all the 12 cantos. I didn't have so much of a problem, because I felt like I could, as mothers, as parents, we actually know how to explain it to their children in a way. Even the most difficult concept, we will be able to explain it in a way that my child can understand, So I would do like that. And for areas which was very difficult, we just move ahead without too much discussion, And the nice thing about starting from the beginning is, of course, Prabhupada recommends that anyway. The first two is the lotus feet of Krishna. So it's nice, because then the children have a sense of what's going on and what's to come, what's to expect, in future. And But for children who cannot sit through that, then I suggest that we can go directly to the stories. Like, for example, the Prahlad story is the entire 7th canto. The entire 7th canto is Prahlad's story. So, and this is a lot of information there, a lot of exciting things happening there. And you can start like that and go deep into that.
Follow-up question. So, if you, what are the different activities or the lessons that you taught your children while reading Srimad Bhagavatam? Say, like first chapter, like the child can learn vocabulary, the child can learn comprehension. What are the different, what are the other activities that you, like, did you structure it, or it was more spontaneous that, okay, now, now let's do math out of this or science out of this, but was it more structured?
No, we just discussed. We just read and discussed, and we, in terms of, mostly it was discussion and reading, and once in a while I would give them writing assignments, like we would pick out a few words and everything. In terms of history and all these things, we weren't thinking, okay, let's take out a history lesson out of this. I mean, the whole Bhagavatam is a history, Vedic history, is a history of the most important people. See, Vedic history is not chronological, like we have modern history. It's about the most famous people in the world, you see, and because so that is history anyway. So similarly, other subjects are automatically being covered. Social sciences is being covered. So many things. There's description of the caste system. The 4 classes. And so many aspects of different. That's why if you study the Bhagavatam, then you get a very good grounding, a foundation on all the subjects of the world. Like Prabhu was saying, it covers everything, so that when the child goes to college, then he knows everything from the Vedic perspective. So nobody can, brainwash him into any kind of Mayavadi thinking or materialistic thinking, because he's had such a good, strong basis. So much of science is being covered, In Prabhupada's purpose, this constant battle between materialist and, the devotee is just being on and on and on. So,
just further point on that means the heart of the whole process is the discussion tutorial approach. However, alongside that, then assignments can be developed to cultivate specific skill sets. So, like vocabulary lessons, comprehension lessons means what did you read in this chapter? So the question answers can be done. Question answers, vocabulary, writing assignments. You write 1 paragraph, or 1 essay on Prahlad Maharaj's relationship with his father or something like that. So all those additional subjects can be done in addition to the discussion. It means the discussion is the heart of it, and then all these things are products based upon that. And then it can become a full language curriculum. So I remember, for example, underlining words that we had to look up in the dictionary to understand their meaning, and then using them in a sentence or two, writing a short paragraph essay based upon it. So those things are there, but they should never replace the heart of it, which is actually the interaction and the discussion process. For those who would like a more structured approach like that, my mother is right now developing a curriculum in collaboration with other devotees, in which for smaller children, the age group, a full Bhagavatam study curriculum basically, and that covers things like language arts and even arts and crafts and games and vocabulary and all those things like that. So those types of resources will be available soon, but the main part of it cannot be actually written down as a set curriculum. See, and that's the thing that even in this book, she'll make clear at the introduction that the most important aspect of this I cannot give you in this book. Everything I'm giving you is to support that main aspect.
Just wanted to announce that for those of you who do not know, Mataji is facilitating a Yahoo group where parents of different age groups, they come together and they kind of have a curriculum for reading Srimad Bhagavatam. So I can give you more information on that after this session.
How long did you take, Mataji, to finish one time Bhagavatam, like just by reading translation and discussion?
5 years.
That's what I thought, yeah. And my other question was, I just wanted to actually tell what Mataji said. I have been trying to be a part of the YAO group and trying to follow as much as I can, because my son is not homeschooled, but it's very helpful because we get to know the stories. We don't do a lot of vocabulary because he already has a lot of vocabulary homework from school. So we kind of skip a few of the assignments, but the main thing that I always try to do is the discussion, so you understand the part more. Thank you so much for that, Mataji.
Thank you.
Question was that did you concentrate on memorization of verses, or was it just part of natural inclination to memorize?
We did that. We have a whole slide coming up on memorization. So it's coming up soon in the back.
So, Prabhuji, when we are doing Bhagavatam, so there is all these Vedic concepts like astrology and all that. I'm sure like within US you can't really teach those things because probably we don't have those kind of teachers. But did you get a chance to learn any of these, apart from Sanskrit or just Vedic, any other Vedic related concepts or arts, Vedic arts, like in terms of astrology or anything like that?
No, astrology we never learned. I think that's something specialized for which one would have to find a teacher, and that too a little bit, after you're 12 years old or something, then at that point. So I guess someone who has a specific interest, it can be more of a specialized topic, just like you could grow up and, study engineering or medicine or whatever. So this is quite an advanced science, which you would have to specifically go and study, find a teacher, I think.
So my challenge is that my son, 4 years old, he really loves the Bhagavatam. It's his favorite book. He goes and he gets it off of the shelf by himself. Even though I say you have to ask first. You have to, regardless what's happening, he may be in his pajamas or anything, and I say, oh, you have to ask first, and then we'll do it together. We'll sit down, anyhow. So. And he may not want to read it one at a time. He just will go. So this, and then the thing is also when I sit down to read it with him, his main interest is in the pictures, and so that's where I have to work with him because of course I want to read and he wants to. Through the pictures, so I have to tell him the story as he's looking at the pictures. So that's my challenge with wanting to read the Bhagavatam with him, is that he really wants to focus on the pictures. I guess he's a strong visual learner, so he's very much interested in the pictures. So I have to just, as much as possible, tell him the story while he's looking at the pictures. So I wonder if you might be able to say, how it can be. How do you make it work? How would you work with that and making it age appropriate for there are many big words, and so whenever I come to big words, I just tell him, oh, do you know what this word means? It means like this, and I explain, and I try to work with the large vocabulary for a small child, 4 years old. There's a lot of big words, so that. I don't want him to get lost in all the big words also. So anyhow, these are some things that come up when we're reading together. So if you could say something about that, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, actually, it sounds like you're doing a great job with your 4-year-old. This process of reading Bhagavatam together and discussing is basically, we're describing it for after the start of formal education. So basically after the age of 5, 6, like that, basically when a student starts reading competently. So it can start earlier, but it's after they start learning. At a younger age, even 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, children can still read Bhagavatam. And the way to do that is to, like you're doing, sit down with them and have them go through the pictures. And the nice thing is that when you get them to hold the book, it develops an attachment to the Bhagavatam, to the book, and then as they grow older, the transition from the pictures to the text is very easy. You see, so that's the benefit of working with a 3 or 4 year old by showing pictures on the shelf of the Bhagavatam, rather than say showing pictures in just a picture book or showing pictures on the computer of Krishna. Means all that is pictures, but when you become attached to the Bhagavatam, then they'll gradually transition to actually reading the text. So with my 3-year-old, I'm basically doing the same thing. We have the Bhagavatam placed at a shelf which is at his height, so that he can get the Bhagavatam anytime he likes. So that's a good thing. I mean, I think that he's taking the Bhagavatam himself off the shelf, and then that way he becomes really attracted to it because he wants to see the pictures and so on. So if he's ever having a tantrum or doing something not good, if we just say, oh, let's read Bhagavatam, then immediately he'll drop whatever he's doing and he'll go to see it. Because it's fun for him. It's something he looks forward to. And then naturally, every once in a while, as we're looking at the pictures and talking about them and telling the story, he'll turn to somewhere in the middle of the book and say, now read this. And of course he can't read it, it's the text. But I read a paragraph for him. And then we recite a verse. I'll say one verse and say tat, and he'll say tat, and then we'll repeat like that. So he feels like, oh, I'm reading. I'm reading the book also. So you can try that also, is try call and response of reading of the verse and also the translation in English. Like we do in the temple. Read 2 words and ask him to repeat them. 2 words and ask him to repeat. And then you develop the habits of reading early on. So even with smaller kids, the pictures are a great place to start. And if you can get these small Bhagavatams, they publish this set with like 30 volumes, small ones, then that's really easy to handle for a 3-4-year-old, and a lot of pictures, extra pictures in them.
I remember when my children were really small, below 5, like 2-3 years, we never used to have so many children's books in ISKCON. So my books were just Srimad Bhagavatam pictures. So we would spend hours just going through just the pictures. And at that time, the oldest set had 32 books in them. Now they have reduced it to now bigger and heavier books. So there were so many pictures for them. And they would want to see that again and again and again. So, I mean, with books like that, you don't even need any other books, And the other thing was, I was thinking, in terms of big words, even when they started reading Prabhupada's, directly from Prabhupada's books, they were 6 years old, the youngest one, and he was 8. Even then they had words that they could not really read. So we would not worry about getting the meaning of each big word. It's too many of them, right? And they get overwhelmed. So we do. Just a few. And a lot of them, as we read, they understand through context. They understand the meaning while they read it. And it's a great way to learn vocabulary. It's not like you have to understand everything. But through context, you can understand a lot. And then we pick out like only so many words. We don't want to make too cumbersome, too hard for them, because then they see it as a burden. We want them to make it positive and done in an atmosphere of a lot of love and encouragement. So they always see it as a positive thing, something they want to run to, like your son. Okay?
And the progress should be relatively quick. Even in the translations, when you're reading, it should be so it gives a sense of accomplishment. I remember feeling the excitement. Oh, we're coming to the end of a canto. We will have read now 4 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam. So it was we weren't reading in detail so much. So much of it, the prayers and so on, you come to a lot of prayers and you just keep reading quickly because I want to finish the prayer so I can get to the story. So that's not bad necessarily. In other words, it should not become so, like my mother saying, tedious. Okay, do you understand this verse fully? Every aspect of this verse do you understand? Then we move on to the next one. That's for Bhagavatam class at the temple. But for children, they need to feel a sense of progress. And then our whole processes again and again, right? So we finish it one time, they get a little bit, then next time around they'll get more. Like that.
And Prabhupada's books are very powerful and they're very potent. So it's amazing how fast they pick up on vocabulary. And I mean, it's not just my children. In our community, there's so many children who are being homeschooled, and at 5 they're reading fluently Prabhupada's puppets and books, So it's the potency of the books, it's Prabhupada's potency in the books, where children do pick up a lot faster than other books.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, like you have, like you both have developed a syllabus of where Srimad Bhagavatam is there, and so I was wondering how is this, with the board exams. I don't know about America what the board exams are. So how are you accommodating this with the board exams? And they may require some other subjects like I think mathematics, physics. So how is this two going to go together?
So actually, we're going to be discussing all the other subjects very soon now. So you'll get an idea of all the other things also. I mean, this is specifically, it covers the language arts side of things, but we can actually move to the other questions, other subjects here. I can move on now.
So, quick one, Mataji. So, what was the role you were playing, and what was the role Prabhuji, your husband, playing while bringing up the kids? Such a great kids.
Well, my husband had a job, like most of you have, so they were gone of the house. So naturally, the mother does become the principal teacher, but the husband is there for teaching things in the evening, reading with them, or on the weekends, and the support. It's actually homeschooling works only if both parents are supportive of the concept, and also support. Even the father is not there, but just to help out, with different things in the house, and it helps a lot because the mother does get overburdened and over-challenged. It's a big responsibility, but it's a responsibility that I really enjoyed. I can remember my homeschooling days were the best years of my life. That actually, when I stopped homeschooling, I was really missing it so much. So. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Anyway, that's why I'm sharing it with you, because I relive those memories and I just love it, and it's so wonderful. Thank you.
Actually, can we exchange the mics? That this one is a little bit weak in the. Okay, so let's move on to the other subjects. Okay, so basically the subjects that are most important to cover in a academic homeschooling curriculum are what are famously called the 5 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic, which doesn't begin with R but close enough, rote, and raga. And there's actually 3 R's that are given typically by the general educational curriculum is reading, writing, and arithmetic. We added 2 more here, rote and raga, because they're also very, very important. And basically, our homeschool education focused on these 5 R's. Other subjects like history, sociology, geography, science, chemistry, physics, all these things, they are important, but they only are important at a later stage in a child's education, means after the age of 12, when these higher subjects then start becoming useful for high school and for college and things like that. All of those subjects are basically they're based on these 5. So a solid command over mathematics is the foundation of studying any of the sciences, from engineering to physics to chemistry. Without that mathematical foundation, it doesn't work. Similarly, for any of the social sciences or humanities, the ability to read, write, and comprehend, analyze what you're reading and writing, that's the essential idea. So starting at an early age to start teaching too many of the other subjects basically ends up becoming a waste of time, and also very complicated. 10, 15 different subjects, and you end up relearning all of those subjects anyway when you go to high school, and then you relearn them again when you go to the university. and you end up forgetting a lot of the facts and figures you learn when you're 5 or 6 years old. So the idea here is that these other subjects may be covered in the process of reading, writing, and math, but the focus is on developing these core skills and abilities, and then later on the other subjects can be introduced more gradually. So the language arts we've discussed quite to some extent already. And so what we want to do is just quickly cover some of these other subjects. If anyone wants to know in more detail about other subjects particularly, then of course we can discuss, especially if you're doing homeschooling, then we can discuss in a lot of detail with you, particularly how to cover particular subjects. But here's basically an overview of the different kinds of things. The first one is mathematics. Now, for those who are homeschooling, there's a lot of excellent resources for math textbooks and workbooks. There's, like my mother said, because homeschooling is such a recognized educational option in this country with millions of students being homeschooled, there's an industry available basically that creates textbooks that are particularly suited for homeschooling. And one of the textbooks that we used was the Saxon Math series, which worked quite well. And it has a incremental approach to learning where you have to master the first subject, then you can go on to the next thing in the math book. And each chapter then reviews what the previous ones did, a very thorough approach. And that we did all the way up to algebra, basically, and then did other things beyond that. So with mathematics, basically, it's a subject that, one has to do separately. You have to find good textbooks and pursue it properly. You're not going to get what you need from reading Bhagavatam or so on. So that's very important, and homeschooling can provide just as solid a foundation as anywhere else. In fact, very, very solid. On standardized exam scores and so on, our math performance was always beyond our grades and so on. And although I went in the humanities eventually, decided to get a Ph.D. in religious studies and this area, my brother ended up doing a bachelor's and master's in electrical engineering and taking that route. So the type of profession you choose is not determined by studying of Srimad Bhagavatam. In other words, sometimes parents worry that, we make a Bhagavad-based curriculum, my children will just turn out to be pandits and pujaris, and that's it. And TK, if that's what they want to do, that's fine, but I cannot risk their life like that. But that's not a fact. That's simply not a fact. Of the so many children who are doing this Bhagavad-based educational system, the majority go on to be completely normal people, like engineers and software programmers. Only few become abnormal, like religion professors and things like that in this world. So both sides can be done very easily. It's not a problem. And we don't have a whole lot to say about this because math education is quite straightforward. If you want to know more, we can certainly discuss it. Some people ask about Vedic mathematics and things like that, and you can certainly try to look into that if you're interested, but only as a hobby. It's important for children to get the basic good math courses. They have excellent textbooks available. They need to know that so they can just study nicely and properly. So the next topic is on music. Now, this is something that we emphasize especially to Indian audiences, just because we have a tendency to focus really strongly on the basic academic core subjects, which is of course very good because that way the children become strong in those areas. But we sometimes forget that the artistic sides of education are not simply time fillers and fluff. They're actually a very essential part of raising a well-rounded, wholesome child. When I was traveling a couple years ago, traveling in India, the devotees in Chowpatty had organized a tour of lectures at different good universities like IITs and IIMs and so on, Indian Institute of Science and like that. Then all of these places, the faculty and the students would come back after the lecture and say, we are so desperate to try to balance these students out a little bit. They come to our university completely one-sided. They spend their whole life studying only the basic technical skills that they need to get into IIT. I mean, in IIT preparation in India, it starts when you're 5 years old practically. And you have to start going to tutorials when you're 10 or 12 and special coaching sessions. I mean, it's really intense. And by the time you get there, the faculty was saying these children are ready to explode. They're about to collapse. Intellectually, emotionally, they're ready to collapse. And so we need to find some way to balance out their education. And this is something that is really important in terms of music. Is that music and such kind of creative functions provide a mode of self-expression that's not measurable, that's not quantifiable, and therefore allows a person to really express themselves in a different way. I know doing throughout my academic studies and Ph.D., whatever I learned in terms of the harmonium and mridanga and so on, which was not very much. I mean to say, I don't have a natural talent for being a great musician or something like that. So it was just the basics, but it was so useful. Sometimes when things would become really intense in my studies and a lot of pressure and so on, I would just take the harmonium, go down to the puja room in the house where we were living and just sing some bhajans, Shad Goswami Ashtika or something like that. And it was such a big relief. You felt some sense of prayer there. You could pray to the Goswamis for help and for guidance. And you felt very nice, very relieved after that, because you were able to express yourself through song. And some children are naturally good at this, and they should pursue it even further. Like my younger brother, he's much more expert at music, and he's just a natural musician. He picks up an instrument, he can pick it up quickly. So he's gone on to do it quite well. I knew one family in Sweden also, devotee family, and the father was a Sanskritist, and he was spending so much time really teaching his daughters Sanskrit and academic knowledge and skills. And I went to their home once and I said, you should really think about teaching them harmonium and really adding some music to the environment at home. It was a really wonderful, pure environment. But I said, add some music. And he said, well, I don't play any music. I said, maybe you can learn to teach them. And next time I went, a year later, he had learned a little bit of harmonium, and he had been teaching his children. And he came and said, Radhika, everything in our house has changed. It's so different. Means I enjoy so much sitting down with my children and singing kirtan and doing harmonium and so on. So it's a very important part of education. If you don't have mridang and harmonium teachers, then one thing you can do is enroll the children in piano classes. Piano is basically the foundation of Western music. Every musician, regardless of what instrument they learn, they always learn some piano, because you learn the basic notes, you learn rhythm, beat, timing, different kinds of levels of sound, pitches, everything and then the step from harmonium to from piano to harmonium is a very easy step. Once you learn a little bit of piano, we took lessons for a few years, and then Ganapati Swami came once to Boise and he said, I think you're ready, why don't you play harmonium? And I said, but Maharaj, I don't know what to play, there's no notes for these Hare Krishna tunes. And he said, no, just listen and take it out by ear. But because we had some training, we could hear the notes and learn. And that's how we picked up. Because in Boise, we had no teachers for harmonium and mridanga. My mother knew a little bit, and she taught us what she knew. And then other than that, we would learn from traveling devotees who would come through. They would teach us one mridanga beat, and then go, and we practice that beat. Then another devotee. So our mridanga playing is all hodgepodge mixed up. Different beats from different people. But Prabhupada said that every devotee should be able to give a basic class, should be able to lead a basic kirtan, should be able to cook a basic meal for the deities, right? These skills should be there for everyone. And then one thing you'll be very good at, but the others you should do at least at a basic level, right? So that's the thing. Then the third thing here is rote or memorization. Okay. Now, you know that in India, and even in the West, in olden times, rote or memorization was a very common thing. People used to memorize and memorize and memorize. And now, in a lot of education, the pendulum has swung in the other direction, right? That memorization is completely horrible. It just, it dulls the mind, and children get bored. And it's all about analysis and comprehension and so on. And completely memorization is seen as a demoniac thing, practically speaking. I remember reading a cartoon once. It was the first frame of the cartoon. It showed a classroom situation. The teacher, it was a math class, and the teacher was stating a problem. She was asking a student, so imagine if John had 5 apples and Jane took away 2 apples. Right? Then the next frame was the question, how do you think John would feel? Right? So means... No, don't have to memorize anything or multiply or any formulas. The main thing is to understand the feeling behind it, right? So education you find both extremes, the old style of take the ruler so we don't want to be on either extreme. But the point is memorization is really important. It strengthens the mind. It makes it, the mind is a muscle basically. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes, right? If you lift weights on a regular basis, then you can lift more and more and more over time. But you can't just start off with 100 pounds and expect to lift it. The mind is like that also. The more you use the muscle, the better it gets. I had a music professor in my undergraduate years who told us that in the Middle Ages, people had a memory size that was 400 times the memory size they have today. 400 times the memory size in the Middle Ages. And he said, I never want you to call them the Dark Ages. They were much more advanced than us in many ways. But why? Not because they were any smarter or their brain size was bigger. It was because they used it more. They had to. At that time, there's no iPads, no computers. Most people couldn't write even, or paper was not easily available. It was expensive. Everything you knew had to be here. Right? Everything you wanted to carry, it had to be here. Because they used it, they kept it. Right? They used it, they kept it. And so, for that reason, memorization becomes very productive. Now, how can we do it? Well, one of the things that is really, really nice to do with kids is memorization of verses from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, especially Bhagavad Gita, because those verses are a little easier than Bhagavatam to memorize. There's many, many benefits that come from this. Number one, children can memorize so easily. I mean, the memory is so sharp at a young age that practically if children review something, repeat it 4 or 5 times, they can keep it in their head. Right? They can, and you see this all the time. They don't even pay attention to it. They're just hearing it while they're doing something else, and you think the kids aren't listening. And then they'll recite the verse or one line from the verse, and you're like, where did you learn that? I never taught you. But they're just hearing, they're picking up. The mind is like a sponge. And things that you remember at that age, you can never forget for the rest of your life. You memorize verses now, and then you don't use them for 2 weeks, and they're gone. Right? Then you have to remember them again and again. It's a big struggle. But you learn something for 2 weeks as a child, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, you'll remember them for life. How many people learned nursery rhymes when they were kids? Yeah, you remember them? All your nursery rhymes? Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little. Why do you remember all your nursery rhymes? Is it because they contain profound meaning that you've been using for the rest of your life? No, or you've been practicing on a regular basis every day, secretly in the bathroom you sing nursery rhymes? No, none of that, right? It's just that you learned it at the right time in your life, so that those nursery rhymes are part of your brain forever, right? Forever. So imagine this, if we give our children Bhagavad Gita verses to remember at that age, they can never ever forget them. The verses, when we were little, we embarked on this ambitious project. We were going to memorize every verse in Bhagavad Gita. We had read something like Madhvacharya had learned every verse in Gita by the age of 7 or something. So we got inspired. So we never got very far. It means in the first chapter only we got bogged down. Then we did a different strategy of memorizing 108 main verses. But those verses that we started memorizing, I still cannot forget them. I cannot forget. I can still do for you the hand movements and the gestures that we learned to learn the meaning of the verses. the same rhythm. Everything is burned in the memory. Other verses I've learned since then, I have to practice. I have to review. Otherwise, I forget them. So imagine you're giving your children a permanent Shastra collection in their brains for the rest of their life. Right? Whether, even if they grow up to become complete karmis, they cannot get rid of that. Right? That will always stay there. Just like you grew up to become devotees, you cannot get rid of all your karmi filmy songs and the radio songs. You cannot get rid of them, right? So it's a constant. So think about that. You're giving your children, even if they become karmis, they will always have Bhagavad Gita with them. Right? Of course they won't, but I'm saying that's the gift that we're giving them by giving them verses to memorize. And for them, it's fun. If we make it fun, it's very easy. It can be a game for them. You teach them the meaning by doing different hand gestures and expressions to understand the meaning. My mother would simplify the translation. We would learn a simple translation. Just like Matra Sparshas Tukonteya, Shitoshna Sukha. That verse. Its translation is very complicated. The non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course is just like the non-permanent appearance. Very complicated. So she made it very simple. She said, happiness and distress are temporary, just like summer and winter. We should learn to tolerate it without being disturbed. So it's very simple. That's the translation I remember. And we can do that. Make the translation simple, teach them with hand gestures, and help them to memorize the Sanskrit. If children get going at it, they can easily memorize a verse every day. Easily, right? Every other day, maybe. One thing we have done in Boise for many years, on and off, is having a summer activity competition for the kids to memorize 108 verses of Bhagavad Gita. And you won't believe 3-4-year-old little girls memorizing all 108 verses. Then what we do is they memorize it over the summer, they continue practicing, then in December for Gita Jayanti Day, we have a recital of 108 verses by the kids who memorized it. And all the adults get copies of the 108 verses, and they follow along in the copies. And the children, they feel so proud. Sometimes it's just one child. Yeah, can you imagine the self-esteem it brings in her? Right? She's standing there, all the parents and adults are reading along, not reading, repeating. Well, actually what we did is she would read the Sanskrit, recite the Sanskrit, and the adults would read the translation like this. And she would then read what next verse and like that. And 108 verses, she was 4 years old or 5 years old when she memorized all 108 verses. And there have been 3-4 kids like that. So you see the power of the mind at that time. Make it a fun activity. Do it over the summer when the kids have time off from school. And they'll have something that'll stick with them for their life. At the same time, it'll make the brain nice and strong. Very, very nice. Another benefit that comes from that, a related benefit, is that they can very easily learn Sanskrit as a result also. Like my mother said earlier, there are 2 subjects that Prabhupada had asked children to learn in Gurukul. 2 most important subjects. Repeatedly, he says, again and again, English and Sanskrit. And the reason for the Sanskrit is very clear. By learning Sanskrit, at an early age, we can open up the treasure house of meaning, Prabhupada said, that is found in all of our Shastras, in all of our scriptures. You see, when Prabhupada gives a lecture, sometimes he'll focus on just one word from the verse, and then he'll give the whole lecture just explaining the meanings of that one word. So it's a very, very wonderful thing. At the same time, Prabhupada strongly discouraged his adult disciples from learning it. He said, I've translated all these books, what is the point? You don't waste your time. Because the fact of the matter is, Sanskrit cannot be learned a little bit. You see, you learn a little bit here and there, you get frustrated, you cannot memorize half the things. You try it, main thing in Sanskrit is memorization. There's so many rupas and forms to memorize. For an adult, it's very painful. Also, it can be, a little knowledge can be a dangerous thing. When we become older, we develop pride. I know some Sanskrit. Oh, actually, no, Prabhupada is translating this incorrectly. This should be this. I looked it up in the dictionary. It says this here. So we develop this type of, Prabhupada said no. But for children, he emphasized it. Because they have time, they have the intelligence, they have the memorization powers. Everything is there. So Prabhupada said, I wrote my books in such a way that anyone who studies them seriously can learn Sanskrit. And you actually see this as a fact. As devotees, sannyasis, who have no background in any Indian language whatsoever, are explaining, speaking Shastra and words just like this, right? So easily. Just by reading Prabhupada's books nicely, the word for word meaning, and like that. So that's another benefit of memorizing these verses. If we have a desire and inclination, it's nice to be able to find a Sanskrit teacher in the community who can then teach the children systematically, teach them nicely. Finding a devotee teacher is very nice because what they do is then they can connect what they're learning with what the children are using on a day-to-day level in their lives. You see, in India, when people learn, many of you, if you grew up in India, maybe you studied some Sanskrit in 6th standard or something like that, and it is always a very boring subject, and people hate it, or else they love it because it's easy to get good marks on it, So, in any case, the point is it's irrelevant, my cousins used to say, "Phalam phale phalani, Sanskrit kavi na ani." they just ani to bhul jani to maar khani. It's a subject that's not very much loved because the reason is it's useless. Right? If you're not a devotee and if you're not practicing Krishna consciousness, why should you learn a language that no one ever speaks anymore? I'll never use again in my life. Some sentimental reason my parents have, but I have no sentimental reason to study it. But for devotee, we use it on a day-to-day level, day-to-day basis. Every prayers, every mantras, and so on. And we study Bhagavatam together with them, so they have natural motivation. So if we can find a devotee teacher who can connect it to our day-to-day life and encourage the kids like that, it's actually really nice. Otherwise, we can just learn by teaching them verses and translations, and in this way they will gradually pick up. Then the other subjects I already mentioned, that they can be postponed until later on in life, after the age of 12, or even later. For the sciences, for example, in our homeschooling, when we got older and just before we were entering college, then we found a tutor, a science tutor who was specifically tutoring homeschooling kids. And he had a whole laboratory set up in his home, and we would go there for class a couple times a week, and he would teach us the basics of chemistry or physics or so on. And you pick up really fast because math skills are good and reading skills are good, so it's not so difficult to pick up. But basically now, here in the state of California, there's a lot of resources for homeschool kids to learn these different subjects by taking classes at local public school or private school or so on, or finding tutors for that purpose. But all of this can come later because in high school you learn all these things. Then college, when you enter college, you learn them all again. Algebra and trigonometry and so on. So it all comes quickly. You take one course in the history of Western civilization, you pick up all those things that you need to learn in one semester, basically 3 months, rather than trying to cover them from the age of 5, gradually.
Yeah, that's just one point, that even for those who are homeschooling here in California, they have annual exams for homeschoolers, and you don't have to cover any subject other than, even they recognize that English and math is the main one until you enter 6th grade or something. So the idea is that the first 15 years of our life, or 12 to 15 years of our life, if we just focus on these 5 R's, I think we are preparing our children for bigger things later on, and there's really no loss, because if we fill their minds with all these different 10 subjects, then naturally there's only going to be so much time to do the real things, you see. So
yeah, the standardized exams in Idaho and much of the Midwest and so on were the Iowa tests for basic skills. I don't know which ones they use here, but Iowa tests for basic skills were also all these are the same ones they take in school, and we would take them every year as homeschoolers just to measure our progress and see how we were doing. And they were English, comprehension, language, vocabulary, mathematics, reasoning, like that. The 5 R's basically is what they.
Yeah, these annual exams was not a problem. We were studying, like I said, Bhagavatam for our language arts, and when the time came for the annual exam, just maybe a month before that, we would do some practice sheets, for the exams, and they were able to do well, and they would really do really well, like skip some grades. Their level would be higher than the grade that they were doing the exam for. So, that was used to be my yardstick where I knew, okay, everything is going okay, I know I'm doing all right, because if they're doing okay in the annual exam, then basically there's nothing to worry.
Because all the school kids and everyone's taking the same thing. So our homeschooling association in Boise used to hold an annual exam for all the homeschool kids. And exactly the same. So you measure your progress, and all the homeschool kids would be performing 2-3 grades higher than their peers in school. So that way, there's no doubt in the mind. Okay, Bhagavatam is working academically. I don't have to worry at all.
And the same thing can happen here. I talked to Anand Vrindavan Mataji, and I think there will be, at some point, we'll have her here and speak to everybody about her experiences with the California law and homeschooling law at some point.
So this concludes this section on books are the basis. Yeah, okay, so we can take that as our first question. The question in the mic, I'll say again, was on the importance of speaking the mother tongue, something I skipped there. The value of this cannot be underestimated. Whatever our mother tongue is, whether it's a local Indian language spoken only by a few people, or whether it's some major national language, or whether we come from Russia or from Croatia or from Germany or Spain, if we have our own additional language, then we should definitely speak that at home with our kids. The reason for that is because, several things. Number one, language is a way not just of communicating, of how to say something. Or I can say, bring me the coffee in English. I can say, give me the chai in Hindi. And I can say it in Telugu. That's not the point. The point is a language is a whole way of thinking. It's not just communicating. When you speak a language, you're able to think in that language or in that culture. And a whole method of approach, basically, of seeing the world. And in today's world, having a multilingual ability is practically essential. Everyone who works in professional jobs knows that it's a globalized world, and multiple language abilities is something that gives you an upper edge in everything from college admissions to graduate school admissions to job applications, because it signifies to the admissions committee, it signifies to the employer that this person is globalized, this person can think in more than one culture at a time, they're able to communicate across language and religious and cultural boundaries. And the best graduate schools in this country require you to have a second language before they give you admission. So, okay, our children will take Spanish and they'll take French and German. But if we can give them another language for free, why not? Sometimes we become afraid, if I speak with them Hindi at home, then or Telugu at home, then they won't learn English properly. That's an unfounded fear, okay? Because they're going to learn English anyway in living here. It's going to be something automatic. Even if they don't speak any English for the first 3, 4, 5 years, they'll pick it up just like that when they go out. Because children are so easy at picking up English. In fact, half the time we speak English to them, we teach them all the wrong English. And they come to school with heavy accents and wrong grammar and so on. So the point is that at home, we should definitely speak our own language. And there won't be any confusion. I know in Radhadesh there's one family. They're living in the community in Belgium. The husband is from South America, so he speaks Spanish to their daughter. The mother is from Holland, so she speaks Dutch to the girl only. They live in a French part of Belgium, so she picks up French in the general society. It's an ISKCON community, so all the lectures and everything happens in English, so she's fluent in English. And her best friend who lives next door is from Germany, so she speaks German fluently with that. Right? 5 languages, and she's able to keep all of them straight. I've seen that girl. I go every year to Radhadesh since the age she was 5, and she's now like 8, 9, 10 years old. Fluent and no confusion whatsoever. At that age, the mind is so strong. Children can learn up to 6 languages simultaneously and not get confused at all. So if we can give it to them for free, why not? Right? Why not give it to them for free? We should not hide that or avoid that opportunity for them. Now, other questions in regards to this section that you may have. Yes, Mataji.
I was thinking about the Sanskrit, Prabhuji. So, you were talking about it's always nice to have. So there are many institutions around. So, when we take classes, I had a question for Sanskrit and even music. Like in music, when you learned, I understand that if it's a devotee teacher who teaches Sanskrit, will teach, the kids and give examples from Bhagavatam and things like that. It'll be easy. And so is it, in case you don't have any, so is it okay to learn from a person who's not anything to do with ISKCON?
Yeah, it's okay. These skill sets like music and piano and so on, it won't matter too much. I mean, you may, if you're unfortunate, you might find a Sanskrit teacher who's filling all kinds of Mayavad philosophy into the lesson. So you might have to be a little aware of that. But I think most Sanskrit teachers are not interested in that. They're proud of the language. They want to teach the language. So there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
There's nothing
and
wrong.
So is in music, when we learn like Carnatic classical or Hindustani classical, which so when they start teaching, they do teach about all demigod songs and everything. So is it necessary that we request them not to do that, or is it okay? Because whenever my son learns any song, so I always say you have to respect the demigods, because they're serving Krishna. They're in a better position than you and me. You can sing, but when we sing at home, we sing Vaishnava bhajans. So he does learn other songs, but I just wanted to know, is it necessary that we request them not to teach?
If they're willing to teach Krishna songs, then it's nice. But the thing is, if it's classical music, then it's okay. I mean, what becomes a problem is when they're teaching traditional Carnatic music or something, and then having them practice with filmy songs, and this I've seen with a few teachers. They'll try to be ultra modern and they'll adapt the language and add some modern songs, and then it's nonsense. But if it's classical music and bhajans, then it's okay. It means our children are strong enough that they understand. Okay, this is the position of the demigods, and we respect them and honor them like Brahma Samhita describes. So,
thank you.
Yeah. In the back.
Quick question: are you covering the ages of 12 to 16?
We will talk about that a little bit in the preaching section in terms of the identity of a teenager and developing that and so on. But in terms of academically speaking, I think we can say something now in terms of high school or basically from the age of 12 onward, then homeschooling becomes quite straightforward because by that time the homeschool child has learned very well how to be independent in their studies. And so my mother would give us a particular assignment to work on, and we would read it and we'd figure out what's going on, and we'd do the assignment, and it's basically a form of self-study, independent study, because by that time the child is basically at a college level already. You're quite mature and able to do these things. Occasionally there are questions here and there, then you ask the parents or you ask whoever's amongst the parents good to do it. About the science subjects, I said we can find a tutor at that age to help them. But it's good. It's especially nice to do homeschooling during those years, because the high school years are especially the most intense for children. They can be very, very. It's the ages at which children get into all the wrong things. By the age of college time, they're already a little more stable. And college life doesn't hold, it holds peer pressure, but not to the same extent that high school does. High school, the peer pressure is just intense, it's killing. And in terms of getting into drugs, in terms of illicit relations with other, with the opposite sex, in terms of the change in mentality, it happens during the high school period. So that's why homeschooling is especially useful for, I know many, we know several families who even though they weren't able to homeschool up to the age of high school, when it came high school, they did homeschooling at that point. And it's actually, college admissions is quite straightforward. Colleges and universities these days are very happy, even eager, to look for homeschool kids for admission, because they know these kids will be socially very well adjusted, they'll be mature, they'll be academically excelling, and you can get the equivalent of a high school diploma by taking the GED examination, General Equivalency Diploma, which gives you basically the equivalent of a high school diploma. Yeah.
Prabhuji, regarding the language, what you are saying, if many of you might not know, it's a very nice thing of US state government that they give a critical language scholarship of 13 languages all over the world, and out of 13, 4 are from India, like Hindi, Punjabi, Bangla, and Urdu. So if you learn those languages, you get a scholarship after your high school to go to that country and get 1 year scholarship and learn about that culture and that language more, and that helps here coming back here for your master's degree or so. So that's a very good point.
Yeah, no, definitely. Also, it helps where you get special preference for all kinds of federal jobs also, especially like in the State Department, Foreign Service. So especially if children are planning to go into any kind of government, public service, politics, those areas.
So I know a homeschooler family here who is Balram's classmate. His elder sister, she finished her bachelor's by 17 or 18, and then she had done the Japanese language specialization during her college year, and she got a scholarship for 1 year to go to Japan and learn more on that. And now she is doing her master's in MIT at the age of 20. So.
Also, if we want them to grow up to become devotees and preachers one day, if that's our desire, then their preaching field doubles by teaching them another language, right?
Yeah.
You learn Hindi, you can preach all over North India. You learn Telugu, you can, so I mean to say, any language you learn, your preaching field increases. So you give them 2 languages as a child, English they'll pick up, and your mother tongue they'll know, right? If you, husband and wife, speak different mother tongues, then even better. Both of you, our plan is my wife speaks Gujarati only to my sons, and I speak only Hindi. And sometimes he'll say something Gujarati to me, my kids, and then he'll translate for me. No, Papa, this means like this. So, okay. So he's already started translating. You see, communicating, being go-between between me and my wife. So this is that way they get 3 free languages, and then in college or high school they can definitely learn 1 European language, Spanish or French or German, and then they've got the whole world to preach. Yes, they can go to Europe, they can preach in America, and they can go to India. Prabhuji in the back.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Since the preaching is the essence, I like in San Jose we go for book distribution like very often, and whenever this time in December marathon we took a testimonial like Vaisheshika Prabhu talking in iPad, and we go every house and show. Now I am seeing that Mataji trained you and you are a testimonial, and that makes a lot of impact for us. Like I have a 6 months boy now, so I am thinking more about the school homeschooling. And I just want to thank you for this wonderful presentation, and this is a perfect testimonial for your mother. Thank you, Prabhu.
According to your description so far, so it seemed like you and your brother, you studied together. So did it mean that you studied the same subjects together and you took the same exams together, or is it that you used to take different grades?
Yes, when in terms of Srimad Bhagavatam, I was teaching them together because they were only 2 years apart, and even if they were like 3, it would have still worked out, even a few more, because even though we are reading, there are different levels, but still, when we are discussing, then the mother or father can put it in a way for the younger child to understand, and then put it in a way, make it a little bit more challenging for the older child. So as the older child is answering or asking questions, the younger child is listening, and he gets to benefit the most, from the realizations of the older brother or sister, like that. So, like just 50 years ago, the whole concept of schooling was so different. There was one schoolroom with one teacher, and there were few students of different ages. And the teacher, that's the Vedic system. And even in America, they had it just 50 years ago, which was very healthy for children, because then, and one teacher was teaching children of different ages, where he would assign something, and if the child had a problem, would come up to the teacher, and the teacher would basically work individually with that child till the next child came up. So it's not something that cannot be done, teaching 2 children of different ages. It can actually be done really well. And then the older child can teach the younger one. And that also is very nice, because it gets emphasized for the older one, the same subject. And the younger one likes it, with a sibling learning it from him rather than always from the parents. So.
And about the exams, for example, that you used to take the board exams?
Oh, different levels. Yeah, different exams. Yeah, because if he was in 2nd grade, he would take 2nd grade, and he would take the 3rd grade, like that. Yeah, but it's not like you cannot teach them together.
So, I have just one point to mention. Those who are, if you are thinking or understanding about homeschooling in California, we are doing here homeschooling for our kid Balram by the inspiration of Aruddha Mataji and Radhika Raman Prabhu for last couple of years. So there are actually good advantage of doing here. At least 27% is incremental growth in the homeschoolers every year, particularly in California. And the reason for that is the decline of the values of the education primarily in the public school. And if you are really not sure whether you wanted to pursue the path or what are the benefits, I have done a pretty good cost-based analysis. For example, if you are thinking who is paying or what, so even in the monetary terms, if you compare, if 2 of you are working and if you have, let's say, 2 kids, and then if you wanted to send to a public school to compare to a private school, how much is coming, what are the benefits on that area, and how much at the end, if you calculate, you save down the road in 10 years based on comparison your qualitative values like peace, Krishna consciousness, mood, etc., etc. There is a chart I can also share with you in confidence if you like to know about that. But don't hesitate, because once something is there, don't try to subdue those desires rather than to manifest that, and try to explore and understand more, because Mataji has started on her own when there was no such supporting materials or anything on own confidence, own belief and faith. But Krishna has given the real intelligence and produced something like that. So similarly here right now, from materialistic point of view, there are really superior intelligence available now. And you can see there are a lot of public schools in at least San Francisco are envious of the homeschoolers, and they produce the banner, ban these homeschoolers, because they are really getting the more benefits from the government. So irrespective of, I think from Krishna consciousness perspective, if you think, I know one parent saw that my kid is a girl, and after teenage, how I position it. Means it's a valid question. If you really have list it out, because you don't want it to be panic at the last minute, better to proactive measures if you wanted to take, do it now. If somebody thinks that I don't care, whatever it is, let's go with the flow of the flow, then that's a separate issue. But if you really be serious and sincere to understand that there are values associated with it, then you must consider a proposal and definitely do from financial perspective, from social perspective, and from devotional perspective. And in long run, how you get the benefit. That's my proposition.
Very nice.
That's really nice, because I would also say go and educate yourself about it. There's so much now out there. At least give yourself a chance to find out more about it. And then in America, there's no loss. Like if you homeschool for 1 year and you decide to stop it at one point, your child will not suffer. He'll go to the next grade because they recognize homeschooling here. It's not like he has to repeat the same grade again. So that's another thing to consider.
I just had a comment, Mataji. Sanskrit as a foreign language is recognized in the state of California.
Really?
So yeah, if you're doing 3 levels of courses, like usually outside it's done by Sanskrita Bharati. You do the 3-level course, you give the exam called SAFL, and they will. You don't have to do a second language in high school for the state of California. Yeah. So I just want to tell you.
Good.
Study it and they'll tell you it's a dead language.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in love with it. It was a dead language. I used to dream about being in the streets with pocket. It was so nice. Yeah. It's a dead language.
There's one Prabhu at the back who wants to say something.
Okay.
So, a lot of devotees here, they eventually will want to go back to India. And what's the possibility of continuing homeschooling in India or following academic curriculum here but being in India, or how it works out in India?
Yeah, so actually that's a very good question. In India, homeschooling, there's actually quite a very nice possibility for homeschooling in India, and there are devotees doing that as well, and many non-devotees doing also, although it's not well known by the general public. It's something that we can discuss perhaps tomorrow during the question and answer session, or more individually, just because it may not be relevant to a lot of people who are settled here already. But when we give our seminars in India, then we have a whole set of materials on what needs to be done in India, how it can be done, and so on. And actually, what I was going to suggest is let's go on and finish this 3rd section. It's the shortest of the 3 sections, but it's very important. It's essential. Let's finish this, and then at the end of this section, we talk about some practical resources for homeschooling. And at that point, we'll ask also Balimardan Prabhu or Anand Vrindavan Mataji to talk a little bit about the legal situation for homeschooling in California, and we'll then also address some homeschooling resources available in the devotee community from my mother and from others, questions of getting high school diplomas and accreditation for the coursework and so on and so forth. So all that legal, mechanical aspect of things is we actually cover at the end of the seminar. So I know there's still more questions there, but like we did last time, let's just continue onward, and then we'll come back to your questions later. So the next section is called, the final section is called Preaching is the Essence, and this is all about those things that are otherwise called extracurricular activities, means beyond the academic curriculum, but actually are not extra at all. They're actually essential curricular activities. And these involve things like social life and preaching activities and discipline, things like that. Oh, yeah. Achha. Nee, I think then we talk about preaching as a general question. What is...
Okay, come. So one of the very urgent questions in homeschooling is that, well, what about social life? Because as a norm, children go to school 8 hours a day, and they have so many other children in the classroom to associate with and to play with. What about that aspect in a homeschool environment? And this is something that every homeschooler has to be aware of and work towards, because as we all understand, children do need friends. They do need to play. Playing is a very important activity for them to, develop their creative abilities. So, now in our case, we had a little struggle initially because, like I said, there was no devotee community, and there were other children, families coming from India, but they were, not following devotional mood or devotional habits, and it was a little bit of a struggle. And at one point, I allowed them to go to their homes, and very soon I realized that it was not going to work out because of, different meat eating and television. And then they found friends who were, from Sri Vaishnava groups and things like that they could go with, and I realized that actually they were quite happy with that. They had a few friends, but they were happy. So sometimes we tend to think that unless children had like 20 friends, they cannot be happy. But really, a few friends, they can, good friends will be is enough for them. The other thing is that, and of course, our temple became a very good resource for social life, because we were having a preaching center, so they got opportunities to participate in festivals and programs and Harinam and book distribution. That gave them an outlet for socializing. And also we were running a small restaurant, so they got a chance to talk to the customers. And so the whole idea was to let them experience the outside world, but in a protected way. And that's what I try to do. That yes, you can, and even the people who are not devotees, karmis, they understand that. Like they also follow rules. Okay, you can come home after 9 or whatever. So they also protect like that. So so this way I was able to, they were having social life. And of course, this one of misconception that we have is that, unless children are always with peers, all the time, it's not good for, it won't be healthy for them. But really, this can be a misconception, because Prabhupada really stressed the importance of adult association over peer association. He said, children, this is how he wanted children to be raised, is for them to imitate the adults. He said, they just simply follow what the adults are doing. They're getting up in the morning, they're doing Mangalarati, going on book distribution, Sankirtan, and then learning, some academic subjects like that. He wanted a schedule like this for our children. Because, and like I already talked about, how by being in an environment where there's a variety of age groups for the children, with adult association, also with peer association, children get a more healthy intake of social habits, social skills, rather than if we put them in school 8 hours a day with children of their own age groups. So, Prabhupada used to say children are basically fools, and if you just put them with fools, what are they going to learn, right? That's why he stressed adult association for them so much. And Prabhupada, and my husband gave a very nice example to me one time. He says, Indira Gandhi, she was a very big statesman, Prime Minister of India, and she was not even high school educated. And where did she learn all the politics and diplomacy and all those things? By standing behind the chair of her father, and hearing and watching how these people were dealing. And that's how she got educated, by being in that association. So and you see in today's society, because children don't have this variety of association with different age groups, the children really are having difficulty relating with the adults, because they think they have their own life, they are their own species, where they have their own type of food they like to eat, they have their own music, right? Their own type of people that they want to hang out. They actually get embarrassed to be with their parents, They don't relate with them, and due to that reason, they lack responsibility. So, but devotee children don't have that problem, because they are with parents who do the same things that they do. We have the same food, the same program, the same festivals we enjoy together. So there's very little generation gap in our society, if we raise our children properly. But if we don't give them that, and if we just, and that's a lot of hesitation among people about homeschooling, is that where are the other children in the classroom? Tons of other children. And that could be a very discouragement for them. But really, it's not a source of fear. For me, even with being isolated in a place like Boise, I didn't feel any lack of social life for them.
This idea is there that, the best way to educate a child is by putting him in a room with 30 other children exactly of his same age. And that conception is something that even in the West is only about 50 years old. means somehow we've come to believe that with so much heart and mind and soul, even though just in our parents, grandparents' generation it was not true. All over the world, this idea of multi-age groups present in learning together in the one-room schoolhouse, it was common in the United States also. And that's what creates an integrated culture. Like my mother saying, this subculture that's created in the teenage years. Why is that there? Well, because that subculture is there all the way through the early years also. It's just that when they develop the intelligence, a strong intelligence of an adult, then they become independent and they say, no, I have my own culture and my own ideas. But basically, if you take a whole generation, thousands of students, and you move them exactly together to the next grade, and then all those people go exactly together to the next grade, and then the ones behind them are coming up and the ones before them, then you've got basically parallel worlds moving simultaneously, right? So it's no surprise then that you don't have proper communication between generations, right? And you have these problems at teenage years that are, it's now a common assumption. It's common assumption. Oh, he's a teenager, he's just crazy. Right? Like my child is completely out of hand because he's a teenager. I was told when I turned 13, then a good friend of our family said, oh, you've turned 13 now, everyone's going to hate you and you're going to hate everyone. And I thought, really? I never noticed a difference from yesterday to today. What happened? I turned 13, so it was such a big confusion in the sense that if you look at, again, not just in India but even in the West, when children became teenagers, they were taking up their father's business. They were sitting in the shop looking after things simultaneously. The girls were looking after their younger siblings practically like a mother was, right? It wasn't this sense of, oh, now I'm not going to listen to anything you say. I'm not going to do what you want. I'm going to do my own thing. It was, okay, maybe something was there. Something was there. No, I want to be a man. I want to do this. You don't let me do it independently. But basically, along with that independence came responsibility, right? Because there was an integration across generations. They were there in their father's shop even before they become adults. So they saw, okay, this is how daddy's working all day long. What homeschooling does, of course, we cannot go back to that old culture. It's gone. But what homeschooling does is it provides some kind of intergenerational connection for students, and that's very, very valuable. Now, in terms of peer association, yes, that's also very important for children. It's not that they don't need any peer association, but that peer association is for us especially available and valuable through the devotional activities that we do. By coming to the temple regularly every week, by holding a Namahatta Bhakti Riksha program at our home on some other day of the week, by going on a preaching activity together with our children on some day of the week, we give them so much opportunity to play with their friends, to associate with devotees, and so many things. And I still remember this was something we really looked forward to. Oh, all our friends will be there at the temple. We would play with outside, we'd play inside, we'd work on plays and dramas together. And that's what we're going to talk about here now.
So Prabhupada said, are we taking questions now? No, right now. Okay. Prabhupada said that a tree is known by the way the fruit it gives, right? Same way, whatever we've taught our children can be seen by the way he's able to present it to others. In other words, sometimes we think that in childhood a child has to learn and then later on he simply has to study and learn and later on he can teach. But teaching or preaching is a type of learning. In fact, it's a very powerful way of learning. Because I'm sure all of you have an experience that if you ever had to give class, how well versed you would be in that subject. Much better than if you had to sit down and study it yourself. So this is what we did. And my younger son, he writes about his experience that when he did Bhakti Shastri when he was 13, and then when he came back home, then everybody in the temple asked him to give a seminar on the first 19 chapters of the Nectar of Devotion. And he talks about his experience, how he was studying and taking notes and preparing notes, how towards the end of the seminar he felt he had never known the subject better, much better than when he had done the Bhakti Shastri, because he had to give it to somebody, he had to present it. Because preaching is like that. When we present our philosophy to others, then we actually have to know the subject well, we have to be able to articulate it, to be able to say it in a way that others would understand, we have to be able to answer questions. So all these skills that we would pay so much money for a child to learn in college level is given for free here. Skills of communication, of debate, and public speaking, like that, is given just by preaching. And we have stories of how people have been book distributors, how good they get at this, and they become to go on really big salesmen, in any field, because they've learned the art. So Krishna consciousness that Prabhupada has given us has everything in it. It's all round, it's versatile, and it's all here. So what we did was, so how did I help my children, preach? Is when they were little, very little, then I contacted, daycares and preschools and libraries where we could present this Vedic philosophy there. And of course, like Idaho is very, culturally starved place, so they would be happy to do that. And even libraries anywhere, they are happy to have these intercultural things. And we would go there, and obviously my children were too young to make a presentation, so my husband or I would do that part. But then they would be assisting us. What we would do is first of all, we would make, we would prepare for it. We would have to practice a tune. We would always have chanting there, so we'd have to practice a tune. And then I would make some prasadam sweets, and they would help me with that. And then we would collect paraphernalia to show them, like a conch shell or Sanskrit book, Bhagavad Gita, like that, or peacock feather. We would collect those items, and that would be always very exciting for them. And then I would divide the presentation into different parts, like, the geography of India, music, food, dance. And pretty soon, every aspect of Krishna conscious philosophy is covered. Vegetarianism, why the cow is sacred, chanting. And of course, for little children, we would take that big Krishna art book, the big one, the heavy big one, and we would, give them stories about Krishna to these little children. And they would love it. Krishna is so attractive that anybody likes to hear Krishna stories, and they would always ask for more. So we come back really satisfied and happy doing that. And children, even though they were not doing like the talking, but they were helping me, make a presentation on the music, or they would explain their dress. So the idea was by observing us, and doing what we were doing, one day they would be able to do that themselves. And then as they grew older, then I started thinking about elementary and secondary schools. And the way to get in was that, which was seemed like a very good way, was, in the temple there were congregational devotees whose children were going to public schools. So I would ask them that if they would like to contact the class teacher of their children for us to come and make a presentation. And most of them agreed. And we would be given like 45 minutes to an hour to make the presentation. And as the children got older, naturally we make it a bit different, where there would be more question and answers, And so like this, and soon word would spread around, and teachers would actually invite us to come. And, like there would be a diversity day, or Discover Idaho Day, where they would invite us. At one time, there was a private school, who wanted an India Day for the whole school, and we went from one classroom to another, discussing about Krishna consciousness. And then we would also take people from our congregation to do mehndi, or the decorations on the face, gopi dots, and for the boys, tilak, maybe like that, or even a dance. Our children could do a dance performance. And of course, we would always top it up with chanting and prasadam. So whatever misgivings was there was immediately finished, after prasadam. So we would see, if people were very conservative, we would make it more cultural. If people were very liberal, we'd make it more Krishna conscious. But many times we were, fooled, because we think, these people are so conservative, and they had the best questions. So like that. So we realized that we can make judgments like that. And we pretty much had a standard program where we used in every school like that. One time the public schools in Idaho paid us $1,000 to do, programs in 14 schools, in 2 weeks. So they had this federal funds that they received to give, cultural diverse programs. And of course, so the children, the whole time, they were doing a bit more each time, making more and more presentations. So that by the time they were 10 and 12, they were ready to make their own presentations. That's also early, isn't it? But they were ready because they were watching and observing. And so our first try was in high school classes, because that's we started trying for that. And Radhika was 12 at that time, and my younger son was 10. And they made a good team because Gopal was very good in music and chanting, and he spoke. So that this way and the teacher over there liked it so much that it became a very big thing. Every semester they would invite us for that, and as soon as the school would hear, all the students would cut their class and come and join us. And it became really popular after that. And one time I told the class teacher, I said, one of our spiritual master, our senior devotee was visiting Boise, and I said, he'll be able to come and speak. And she was adamant. She said, no, the beauty of your program is how your youth can present it. So she was adamant that the boys presented. So this is, they were very impressed when our children are able to make that presentation.
One of the benefits it has for the children themselves who are presenting is that it really helps solidify your identity as a devotee of Krishna. When you have to stand up in front of others and explain to someone why is it that you're a devotee of Krishna, what do you believe in, answer questions that are there, then it helps develop that same conviction in yourself. You see, what it does is by going to such programs, by taking our children to preaching activities from an early age, we give them a positive reinforcement of their identity as devotees. They go out and they see, look, people like us, they want us, they're clapping for us because I'm a devotee and because I'm dressed in dhoti and tilak. And they realize that, yes, I can be proud to be a devotee of Krishna. Because these are such positive locations for opportunities for Krishna consciousness presentation. Later on in life, of course, they'll meet people who will, laugh at them for being devotees and spit at them and so on. But by that time, they'll be able to handle all of that, right? It won't be difficult. But by taking them to these positive programs where we're invited, where we're wanted or desired, it reinforces in their mind, yes, I'm proud to be a devotee of Krishna. I'm happy to be a devotee. And what this does is that as they grow older, then this embarrassment that often comes with teenage years, oh, that's my parents' religion, so weird, I don't want to be with them, or I feel embarrassed to be a devotee, that becomes less, right? That goes away because they've been taking the time to present Krishna consciousness, to explain it to themselves. Remember, every time we preach to someone, we're preaching to ourselves, right? So how can you best preach to your children is by getting them to preach to someone else. Then you don't have to preach to your children. Your children are preaching to themselves, right? And they're answering these nice questions about meat eating and so on. So that one day in high school, if someone makes fun of them for eating vegetarian food, they'll be able to handle it, right? It won't be a problem for them because they've already dealt with that question so many times. I remember when I entered the university and someone would ask some questions like, oh yeah, okay. So in my mind, I think I've heard that question 10 times already as standard question everyone has, right? So you don't feel so worried, so phased at that point. At some point, they're going to encounter the real world out there where people are mixed. Some are nice, some not so nice. But by that time, you've given them the strength to be a strong devotee. Yes, I'm a devotee of Krishna, I'm a servant of Prabhupada, and I'm proud to be that way. And so whatever preaching activities we're doing, all we have to do is find some way of giving our children an active role in that. Not just tagging along, Mummy, I'm bored, but really something actively to participate, whether it's out distributing books to people. People love it when a little kid approaches. They'll never mind that sort of thing. Or whether it's these school programs, library programs. We went to a lot of interfaith events also. if you get in touch with your local community's interfaith circuit, then they're always having events, interfaith services for Thanksgiving, standard across America. They'll invite people of different religions to come. And I remember in one program, it was a big program in Boise. It was some famous speaker was coming. They had people from all different religions coming. It happened in the big Catholic cathedral there in Boise. And our role was just very simple. We had to blow the conch shell and say a little invocation prayer in Sanskrit. And I remember that my brother and I, we had this role, blowing the conch shell and reading something, some 2-line prayer. And it was just 2 minutes, right? But we prepared for it and we practiced for it. And then we were so proud up there on stage. Yes, see, I'm a devotee of Krishna. And look at all of these people are there in the church. And they're listening to Mahamantra. And we made a point to put Mahamantra there and so on. So these things, they have a strong impact in the identity formation of a child that you carry much longer. The program may be over, we may forget about it, but the child will remember. It helps shape their identity.
And later on, the panel discussions also they can participate in, and that becomes very nice for them, where they understand, how there's other religions and how to appreciate them, and also see the commonality, and also be able to answer questions and challenges. So eventually, they got on to be able to give classes at the university level. So gradually, and it was a surprise that my husband and I saw that how easily they were able to do those things. It came, you teach them, but at one point, when you actually watch them do it, is really nice, So this is something we may be already doing quite a bit of it, but just to emphasize the importance for all children, the opportunity to celebrate festivals, because it's like it's a practical way for them to show their love for Krishna, and it's so much fun that for children, it's very hard to just sit down and give them philosophy, but then if you show them in a practical way how festivals can be so fun. And for us as homeschoolers, it was very nice because it was a chance for them to do something different. Right before the festival, a week before, we would stop our usual program and we would actually study about the festival. For example, if it was Gaur Purnima, we would study the life of Lord Caitanya from Caitanya Charitamrita for a whole week, and then we would practice the play, and they would have to also write a play, a script, and that became very good writing exercise for them. Generally, children don't like to write too much, but when given an opportunity where they could be director of the play and actually have the play, would be something that they would be happy to do. Especially my younger one, that was the way he learned how to write. Radhika didn't have, he was more, he tried other avenues, like, writing for, Back to Godhead and for newspaper, monthly column and like that. But my younger one, I had to challenge him further, and play was a different. Writing scripts became a very good passion for him. And we were doing plays for every event, for anything, for every festival or any smaller event, we would do a play, because we found that play was a great way of preaching to the congregation, because everybody wanted their children involved, and so we could draw them in much faster. So it became a very nice way. So fasting for children. Fasting, many parents ask me about fasting, whether we should allow our children to fast. And I generally did not encourage fasting until they were like 10 years old, and then, they could fast. And I would always have food around close by in case they got hungry, because we don't want to give them too much of a negative experience about Krishna consciousness. There's one devotee in Boise whose parents on Ekadashi would just give him nuts and everything, and he would hate Ekadashi. Just hate Ekadashi. So we have to be careful. We don't want our children to develop this kind of mood. So, of course, some children do want to fast very much. So we build their stamina for fasting by letting them fast half a day, and then gradually building up. And pretty soon they can fast, completely on important days like that.
Or if it's a full day fast, and the kids really want to fast because everyone else is fasting, no, I'm going to fast too for Janmashtami, then one thing my mother would do is she would give us only Ekadashi Prasad. So we felt like we were doing some kind of fasting on that day, even though we were eating, and that way we weren't hungry or cranky or like that. But it was Ekadashi only. So half day regular fast and then eat as much Ekadashi prasad as you want. Then a little bit of a fun topic is vacations, Krishna conscious vacations, holidays. I won't say too much about this except that there are many, many nice opportunities thanks to the mercy of Srila Prabhupada that we have devotee communities, temples, all kinds of sites to see where you can make any vacation Krishna conscious. And so we would, our favorite thing was visiting national parks because we grew up in the western part of the United States where all of you are as well. And one of the great things about this part of the country is its incredibly beautiful scenery. It's a very sattvic form of vacationing because you get to appreciate nature and appreciate Krishna's the beauty He's created in everything. So we go visit all the national parks in Utah and Arizona and California, and we'd pick a spot and we'd go. And wherever we went, we tried to always go to the local temple for the Sunday feast or something like that, and add a Krishna conscious element to it. Every year, once a year, going to Los Angeles for Rath Yatra. That from Boise, it was 17 hours driving in each direction over a weekend. My father would do, so it was a long trip, but it was something we looked forward to all year long. Then the big experience of our life, which I would highly recommend for all families, as soon as the kids get a little older, is Rajamandal Parikrama, and that was it was like the ultimate boot camp experience. But it was so much fun. It was like almost like a coming of age rite for us, where we really felt like, for me it was like, yeah, okay, I'm a man now. Like I can manage life on my own. Because my younger brother, especially, he was the first time we did it, he was with my mother in the ladies' side, and I was in the Prabhuji's camp on my own. So it was like, it was about 11 or 12 years old at that time, and it was such a transformative experience. Everyone who does it, including the parents, you'll never remain the same person again after you do Vrajamandal Parikrama. For 1 month, it's complete absorption in nothing but Krishna's holy name and Krishna Katha. There is nothing else there. You're just walking all day. And either you can fight with your mind or you can think of Krishna. And for the first week or so, you fight with your mind, okay, where's my computer, and I got to do this and that, and why am I here, and this is too difficult, and it's too hot, and the khichdi wasn't cooked properly. And you have all kinds of complaints. And then after 1 week, if you pray to Krishna, the mind, you can tell the mind, say, look, you're stuck here for a month. Might as well be quiet and enjoy the experience. And when the mind quiets down, then you start really relishing being with Krishna, constantly Krishna Katha. It's like the whole Krishna book coming to life, right? For a devotee, it's like Disneyland. Just like you go to Disneyland, all your characters that you know from childhood come to life, right? That's the attraction. Mickey Mouse is there, and Donald Duck is there, and everyone's there, Cinderella is there. So for a devotee, it's all the stories you've read in Krishna book, and they're all there, right? You see the mortar Krishna was tied to when he was a child. You see the place where he stole the clothes of the gopis. You see where he killed Dhenukasur and Bakasur, and you see the murtis of Nanda and Yashoda, and this is the remnants of Nanda Maharaj's palace, right? It's like Disneyland, practically. But at the same time, it's a lot of physical effort. So it's a wonderful experience, And then sometimes devotees ask about, well, what about like theme parks and different places, and we can go every once in a while. We had some desire to go on some rides or something, but I can tell you that Disneyland was one of the most disappointing experiences I ever had in life. It was so disappointing because we had built up so much expectation for Disneyland, right? And when we got there, it was like 2 hours of standing in line for a 2-minute ride, right? And the ride itself wasn't all that exciting either. It means there's theme parks with better rides, frankly speaking. But what was exciting was obviously the fact that all these characters were there. Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and so on. But we didn't know who this we knew, but we had no relationship with Mickey Mouse, put it like that, or with Donald Duck and so on. If you don't watch TV and read this stuff, then you don't develop a relationship. And without that, then it's not so exciting anymore. I remember going on some Indiana Jones ride, but I hadn't seen the Indiana Jones movie. So it was some ride, and I thought, okay, it's over. What happened? But everyone else was like, oh, did you see the Temple of Doom? So, no, what was that? The Temple of Doom. I missed it. So you see, the point is, Disneyland and these kinds of things are nice. They're useful. You can go because it's practically a requirement to be an American is you have to visit Disneyland at least once. Otherwise, they cancel your green card here. So therefore you should go. You should go with your kids. But the point is we have much better vacation options than this kind of thing, is the only point I make.
Your experience, Prabhuji, with your kids?
Huh?
With your kids, any experience?
They're still too little. The 1 to 2.5. My little one, my older one has the 2-year-old has this book about Bhakta Mushika. It's about this mouse who goes to the. You've seen this book, na? So anytime he sees Mickey Mouse, he's really excited. Bhakta Mushika is here. Bhakta Mushika, and he's putting tilaks on the Mickey Mouse and everything. So maybe he'll be excited to go to Disneyland more than I was because he has Bhakta Mushika.
So this is one of the most hot topics: is discipline for all parents. Is how do we discipline our children? And just going with what Prabhupada said, he said the formula for discipline for our children is that we should try to discipline them through love rather than force or punishment. And of course, what he said, that if there's love and trust between parents and children, then automatically the children would want to obey and do what their parents want. Of course, the center of that love is Krishna. And when we serve Krishna together, then a spiritual bond is established between us, which is much stronger than any material bond that we may have, in terms of being related to each other. So of course, we understand that when we raise our children in a very Krishna conscious manner, doing the process that Prabhupada asked us to do, they automatically become quite saintly. And because if they are raised in stories from the Bhagavatam and all these things, they actually want to emulate these people. And discipline, like I said earlier, does not become such a big issue for us. And because they want to please their parents, they see their parents do so much and work with them in all Krishna conscious activities and fun things, they want to please them. And that becomes their happiness, And parents don't feel obligated to give them some reward, some material reward. Because when we give them material rewards, like, okay, you do this and I'll give you that, then they understand that that the mark of success is material profit. And we don't want to give that to them. So Prabhupada talks about how, we should discipline them with love and rather than force and punishment. He says, superficially, there may be some punishment needed. In other words, we can show them the stick and threaten them. But it's better, he said, if we just do it out of love, out of the loving propensity to love Krishna. In fact, that's a very nice quote that we read earlier that I repeat now, is that Prabhupada said, so similarly, if we train children by developing and encouraging their propensity to love Krishna, then we shall be successful in educating them to the topmost standard. Then they shall always very happily agree to do whatever you ask them. So, and also when he said, by using force, because we see today parents, they want to give all types of material facilities to their children without, any restriction. And if we do so much, if we give so much without any good training or discipline, then the child, he loses respect for the elders. And he also loses self-esteem. And on the other side, if we force them too much, don't do this, and out of fear, and they stop, out of fear they do things, then they will become rebellious later on. So Prabhupada talked about a combination of, love and good training that has to go together. In other words, he said, children should love and fear their parents, both at the same time, And because he said, really, you can't, Krishna is a person and we are people. And we can, our love for Krishna should be voluntary. It's not something you can force a child to love Krishna. It's something that has to come from the heart. So he said that instead of saying all the time, no, you cannot do that. because the children have the tendency, if you say no, they're going to say, I'm going to do it, right? So better we just give them the higher taste. In other words, when we engage them in Krishna conscious activities, then they automatically will give up their lower taste, because, we know that how we cannot change a person's heart just by fear alone. And Prabhupada gave the example how a thief, he keeps on stealing even though he's been caught once, because the desire hasn't gone from his heart. So it's something we can help our children control their senses through Krishna consciousness. Then they will automatically want to give that thing up rather than, just putting that fear element. So every time there was an issue in the Gurukula of discipline and all, Prabhupada always stressed this, because he said the children should love the idea of doing austerities for Krishna. How will they develop, this attraction for Krishna, this attraction for, for doing austerities, some penance for Krishna? It's only when they see Krishna consciousness positively, when they see, it's so much fun. And for a child who's trained like that, austerity becomes very enjoyable, right? Because for him it's not an austerity to get up in the morning. For him it's not an austerity to, to not watch TV or to eat only prasadam. Because he's grown like that. He grew up enjoying these things. For us it's an austerity, because we never grew up. We may have grown up eating meat. And if somebody tells us to give up meat, we know we all struggled at one point. But for children who have never had meat before, it's not an austerity, it's not a restriction for them to give it up. So children who are trained from the beginning of their lives in Krishna consciousness, they have a heads up on all these things. There's lesser problems in terms of them becoming rebellious. No, I don't want to do this. And still there may be some rebellion that we may have to give in. But we have to feel assured that if you're doing this process of chanting and hearing, is so powerful that children will be, they will understand at some point. So, did you want to add something?
Yes. So at the same time, with that love comes also firm boundaries. And I remember that my parents could be very, very firm and very clear in terms of what was appropriate, what was inappropriate, what was expected, what was allowed, what wasn't allowed. Because like my mother was saying, if we don't give children firm boundaries and limitations, then they grow up without any self-respect, self-esteem. Because it sends basically the message to children that no one cares about me enough to actually limit me, to guide my life. And sometimes we think, if I give in everything to my children, then they know I love them. But it actually works the other way. They realize that you love them because you place boundaries. They realize I matter enough to my parents that they won't give in on something. They care that much about me. And so those firm boundaries are really are crucial. Sometimes we worry, all these restrictions we're putting on our children as devotees, waking up in the morning, you don't eat meat, you don't associate with such and such person, you do like this, you do like that, and you read Bhagavatam and don't watch TV, and so many restrictions there are. So is it good for children to have so many restrictions? But the fact of the matter is that if we don't give them a set of guidelines to live by, then we're harming them to the greatest extent. Means if we don't, there's no such thing as a neutral upbringing. Either you're educating them to be devotees or you're educating them to be karmis, to be demons, right? One of the two is happening. Means there's no such thing as I'll just educate them in a neutral way and then they can choose. It's just like brushing teeth, right? You can either teach them how to brush their teeth or you can give them rotten teeth for their whole life. There's nothing in between. That I'll make brushing teeth optional, and then when they grow up, they can decide whether they want to brush or not. What are you doing if you make brushing teeth optional? You're basically guaranteeing rotten teeth for the rest of their life. Then they don't have a choice when they grow up. They have no choice but to constantly be at the dentist's place. So the point is, there's no such thing as a neutral education. We cannot control when they grow up, will they be devotees or not? Ultimately, that's their decision. But what we can choose is where do we stack the cards in favor? Do we stack the cards in favor of their being devotees, or we make it more likely they become non-devotees? It's just like we cannot guarantee when they grow up they'll become successful materially, right? They'll have a good job, they'll become rich and well educated. We cannot guarantee that. If they wanted, after they become an adult, they can, sit at home and do nothing and, whatever. But by giving them a good education, by sending them to good schools, we're stacking the cards in favor of their material success. So that's all we're doing as devotees, is by setting clear boundaries, we're stacking the cards in favor of their being spiritually successful. So I remember my mother would use a combination of a very strong firmness as well as a lot of encouragement. And one instance I remember in particular in this regard was when I was working on a writing assignment. This was for a Bhagavad Gita correspondence course I was taking. And it was an essay question that I had to do. And the essay question was more like creative in nature. It says, and I was sitting there, and I couldn't figure out what to write. And I was just like stuck, and I was sulking and complaining, and I don't know what to say in this question. I've got nothing to say. And I remember after a couple times of encouragement, when I wasn't figuring anything out, my mother came and she was so heavy with me, so strict. She said, Ravi, you've got 10 minutes and I want 5 pages when I come back. I'll be back in 10 minutes. I want 5 pages. And I went, 5 pages in 10 minutes? That's 2 minutes a page. I can't even write that fast, even if I knew what I was writing. And she said, I don't care what you're doing. I want 5 pages in 10 minutes. And she was so heavy about it and firm that I just frantically started writing whatever came to my mind. And it started to flow, and I got an idea, and I produced an essay. Of course, it was nowhere close to 5 pages. When she got back, then she offered so much encouragement. See, I knew you could do it. You were just stuck, but you had to do it. All you have to do is put your mind to it and get started writing. And then it was just full encouragement. Just from that experience, I realized many years later that I had learned an important lesson, namely how to get over writer's block. When a writer is trying to write something, you get stuck. You can't figure out what to write. In my profession, that's a big problem if you get writer's block. All you have to do is you have to force yourself to just start writing, even if you can't think of anything. You start writing, and then the creativity flows. So, means an important lesson with the combination of encouragement and firmness at the same time. Another instance I remember was when I spoke for the first time at this Bishop Kelly High School. And I know it was my first time. I was super, super nervous. And literally during the whole presentation, I was holding on to the podium and my knees were shaking underneath and I was stuttering and so on and sweating. After it was all over, first thing my mother said was, that was so good. You're natural at this. You're really good. And I know it was terrible. It was really bad thinking back. I can still remember that first time I spoke publicly. But the encouragement basically helped me to become what she was describing me as. She said, you're a natural, good speaker. It helped me to want to aspire to do that. And I felt, I have some confidence. It became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Right? So another small thing that comes to mind is sometimes in the West we offer rewards or incentives for our children to complete certain tasks or help around the house, right? You put the laundry in the wash or you fold the clothes, and the parents give allowances. I'll give you $1 you can spend, or you can... or we'll take you out for ice cream and so on. I remember the first time I went to a friend's place who lived down the street. And the friend said, let me just quickly run around, do my chores in the house. Then I'll get a couple dollars. We can go buy some ice cream. And I remember feeling so shocked, like, you get paid for working around the house? He said, my mother doesn't give me anything for this. And it would never occur to us that this is something that you ought to get a reward for. Right? The reward is basically getting the job done. The point is there was an expectation. You're living in the house, you're eating the food, so you have to help wash the dishes. You're wearing clothes, you have to help wash the clothes. Everyone has to pull their weight because we're all participating in the same environment. Right? But if early on we develop this idea that every activity in this world should get some kind of material reward, then it starts this cycle of, what am I getting out of it? what am I wanting from it? So the last thing then we have is some practical advice for homeschool support. For Krishna conscious homeschooling, it's now something that's very widely practiced in the ISKCON world. There's several resources. One is www.krishnahomeschool.com, also krishnahomeschool.org. It's the same site basically. This is a website that my mother has, where you'll find a link to her Yahoo group if you want to sign up. Mataji was saying earlier about this Yahoo group. There's several of them. There's one general Yahoo group where people can write in and ask general questions about homeschooling, and my mother answers to everyone, and that way everyone can benefit from it. People also connect to find others who are homeschooling in their area or interested in a topic. That's a general group with not too much activity. Then there's a more focused group in teaching children Bhagavatam, one for small children and one for older children. And you can join that group, but only if you're serious about actually following along with the Bhagavatam curriculum. So every week what happens is a group of parents who are working with my mother on this, about 9 or 10 different families. They will send in different aspects of study of Bhagavatam for whatever chapter they're on for that time. And someone will send in the chapter summary, someone will send question and answers, someone will send discussion questions, someone will send arts and craft, games, music, all based on that one chapter. And those resources go to everyone, and then they can all participate in that. The fruits of that, basically the first canto is done now. And the fruits of that will, Krishna willing, soon be published in maybe 6 months' time or something. It will be published as a Bhagavatam curriculum guide for parents and teachers to teach first canto Bhagavatam to the kids, and hopefully that should be published soon. But the main resource that we have available... the main resource that we have available now, which this is actually the first seminar we're doing in the United States where we actually have this to show. It was a long time in coming and a long time to finally get it out. But after all, my mother put in a lot of effort here basically everything that we've talked about in this seminar, along with many, many other things that we just don't get time for in the seminar, are all given in this book. It basically has, several dozen chapters, many chapters, short chapters. Each chapter is maybe 2 or 3 pages long, and it each covers a specific topic. So if you're interested in a particular topic, you can go to that chapter. So there's 3 sections. There's the home environment, academic curriculum, extracurricular activities, and handling challenges, these 4 sections. And it covers everything from specific topics like how to teach your kids writing, to things like encouraging your children to play Krishna conscious games, through handling challenges like possible pitfalls in children's education, or the qualifications of parents, respect for elders. So many different things are there. It's sort of a comprehensive guide to Krishna conscious homeschooling. So this book is now out and it's available. I think, yes, Ananda Vrindavan Mataji has copies available here in San Jose. So you're welcome to stop by afterwards from her and purchase those copies.
You can get a signed copy from Mataji also.
Yes, and she'll be happy to do that. And also then in the future, if they run out of copies here, then the website also is selling copies of the book. But basically, if you buy here, you save on shipping costs as well. And then a more general resource is the ISKCON Ministry of Educational Development. This is iskoneducation.org. It's a great general site for ISKCON education. There's a section there on homeschooling as well as many other articles you can find there. But under homeschooling, there's a list of my mother's articles that she's written for the site. But also there's another interesting resource which may be useful. This devotee whose name is Nancy Stemple, Nanda Patni Mataji, who lives in Washington, D.C. And basically what she runs is a distance learning accreditation for homeschooling, basically. So what you do is you do homeschooling in the way you want to, from Prabhupada's book, Srimad Bhagavatam, so on. You work with a counselor that her organization will assign, who helps you design that curriculum, accredits it, and then you get annual certificates of completion of that grade from her organization. And those are recognized all over the world. I forget which. They use the IBS system or some other system they use, which are internationally recognized. And at the end of your education, they'll give you a high school diploma. So basically you have a full diploma available. That's one. There are many other such things also for homeschoolers out. If you don't feel good about doing it free form, then you can actually do you can get your yearly work accredited and in this way get a regular diploma at the end of your education. And then there's also homeschooling support groups in just about every town and place where homeschooling is done that can help guide you in terms of legal, testing, physical, things like that, organizations. But here you're very fortunate because all that information has already been worked out by devotees. One of the best ways to do homeschooling is as a homeschooling co-op. Means if you have one family doing it, they can do a great job. If you have 2, even 3 families doing it together, it's even nicer. If you're all living in the same area, what you can do is set up a homeschooling co-op. What that means is that the parents basically share the responsibility of educating the children. If one of the mothers is really good at mathematics, she can teach all the other kids math. And the other one, if she's very good at doing arts and crafts, can do arts and crafts with the kids or teach language abilities. And so you can pool resources or maybe do the main subjects yourself and then do like field trips together, do testing together, and really give support to each other. There's a number of different cities around the world where devotees have gotten together to create homeschool support groups, which basically functions as the best of homeschooling along with an automatic social group for the children to be part of and participate in, go on preaching activities together and that kind of thing. So at this point, before we take questions, I just want to ask Prabhuji or Mataji to just give a little rundown on the situation, the specific requirements for homeschooling here in the state of California. Every state has slightly different requirements.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, in California, it's good. It has certain rules and regulations what we need to follow, but that's good for us that as neophytes, we are starting with homeschooling and we don't know. We are just lost, like starting anywhere. So here there are 2 methods in California, basically. One is private school affidavit, that is called PSA. And that is that you have your own private school. Like it's just once a year. The filling of the form happens in September in a certain period, like 15 days. So you name your own school. Suppose we say Radha Madan Mohan School. And you have just your kids in that school. And you are the teacher and you are the principal, everything. So the parents you write the transcripts for them at the end of the year and send it to the state. So that is how it works. And another is through the charter school. Charter school is government funded. Like there are certain charter schools for the counties. Like for Santa Clara County, there are 2 charter schools. And in that you enroll in the charter school. It's same as a public school. You just enroll your kid there. And they will assign an education specialist. That is called ES. And the ES, they come, they are assigned to your child or a family. And they come to your home every 4 weeks. And they take care of all the legal records. So you need not do anything about the legal things. You just give all your details, what the child is learning. Like suppose my son, he learns English through Bhagavatam, as Mataji shared, because I'm following her method. So in that, I showed her, like, these are the comprehension questions I'm giving, and these are the language or vocabulary he's learning. And she said, yeah, it's fine. But sometimes cause trouble. Like, I have heard other homeschoolers, like, the Christians, basically. So, but it depends on the ES. So only that is, if you are getting a good ES, then whatever your curriculum, no problem. You go on your own curriculum, only just you are through that school. And another advantage of being enrolled in a charter school is the state government funds the child per child certain amount of money per year what you can spend for the classes of the child. So
what does that mean? The state government pays you?
Yeah.
To educate the child
yeah,
at home?
Because it's kind of a public school, so they are saving money. The government is saving money in that way through the charter schools. That in a charter school like Balram school, there are 1,000 kids are there from kindergarten till high school, and for 1,000 kids, suppose they are per kid average $2,000. So only that much money they are spending per year. For if they set up a school, it will be a lot of more expenses by the government, right? Yeah.
So yeah, it's like in Santa Cruz they have the Balram and Rovi charter school, Ocean Grove. And Ocean Grove is fundamentally, they have very core concept of educational system, and their ES is very strong enough not only to guide through the processes of the educational and character building, they have a tremendous insight into the kids to see and envision and really give a customized way of guiding where the kids can be developed their quality and what their ingredients instincts are. And not only because in California is public school, they generally get, let's say, $8,500 or more from our tax saving money. Their government is spending $8,500 per student per year. So in order to compensate that, homeschoolers is also as equivalent privilege, and they encourage it, and also they give, let's say, $6,500. So you need to customize that. I spend $6,000 for my kids in learning, let's say, music or sports or whatever it is, or Krishna conscious things. So you have the basically privilege and benefit to invest your own money by the government. So chartered schools is one option where.
So you get paid $6,000 to teach your children?
They don't pay us, they pay to the vendors. For example, we have many vendors in the mathematics. So right now, because of the homeschooling is growing faster, in every area, every city, there are very, just like tuition, they have very developed certain core areas of expertise and where you get trained, and there are a lot of good teachers are coming there because they're getting paid well. So, and you don't spend time, you just go for 1 hour, 2 hours and you learn that instead of waiting and wasting time, whichever you are lacking in that area.
Very good. Very nice.
Educational specialist.
So how many families are doing this? I know you are doing. Are there other families?
In our ISKCON Silicon Valley, we are the only one doing right now. If you are interested, you are sure. So yeah, I think if anybody wants to, because Mataji is here, we wanted to learn the cream essence, but in future, if you wanted to learn all the nitty-gritty details about legal, about the benefits and what are the things, and then superior quality of education, I think there are many misconceptions around the people without the lack of proper information. Otherwise, I would say it will be more enthused to learn and know, and they will be jumped around that there are thousands of different benefits around. Because homeschooling, people first fear is, there is no social skill. How they learn. Okay, that is anyway, those things are be gone. They don't know that they have been interacting with many different groups. Then they will learn about, if the homeschooling, how they get the certificates, who gives it. But there are chartered schools just like public school, private school, chartered school, and as you mentioned about the homeschooling. So chartered school is our official way of connecting here so that we are dependent on someone. We don't want to take the burden right now. But after 2-3 years in San Francisco, many parents, those who have 3 kids, they do the first one, which is the PSA part, private school. Basically, they know, they give their names, say, I say Bhakti Vedanta school I give, and I run my own, and I can enroll few students into there also. They can get education from the accredited by state of California. But there are many opportunities here, and in California, there is a department of education, a separate department, just like we have Ministry of Education, separate department of homeschoolers, which is a very good thing.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
That's a really great opportunity here. And also, there are a lot of co-ops among the Christian community, like how Mataji was saying about the families. So if in our congregation we can do that, because we have a lot of kids here and a lot of families are interested into it, so that would be a very good option. So that co-op also we can do as a PSA, the private school affidavit, same way legally also we can do it. Suppose we register a school as our own private school and we have 10 kids in that, and go through the legal procedures. So that is
it really seems to me like of all the different states we've given seminars, and it seems California is really the farthest ahead in this regard.
Because California has the highest homeschoolers in the United States. So it's the number one state.
Wow.
In other states you have to pay for private tuition for homeschoolers. Here you're being paid.
Yeah.
It's like amazing. I mean, you're getting the best teachers. Like suppose you cannot teach your child science.
Yeah.
So you're sending your child, right, for science.
Balram goes from at the age of 6. He started science class, and the first class was biology. He was going for a biology class. So he thought he wanted to learn about the sea animals, and he went to the marine science class where they learned about all the sharks. They could see the sharks in the shark tank, how the baby sharks are behaving, and how it was like we never did that at that age, So, and now he's learning about atmosphere. When yesterday Mataji was hearing, he told Mama, tomorrow it will rain. I said, how do you know? I thought he looked at the weather. He said, no, I am calculating because of my studies in what way you should predict your weather next day. And at least it was cloudy today morning, so I thought he's close to that. And those are really, really great classes in Bay Area, what I don't know if you will get in other states, because this is quite advanced area in academically and in the education way. So here so many classes that I have to think about which one to take. It's so amazing classes. Like you have to lose something to get something. So and in those classes the main thing I like is it is a small class, maximum 8 to 10 kids, and there are different age groups, how Prabhuji was mentioning, it's like they have levels, like level 1 is 5 to 7 year old, level 2 is 8 to 10 year old. So even though he's 8 year old, he's interacting with 10 year olds, and each class is a different teacher, not a single teacher in the school whole year. So each quarter he has at least 4 or 5 classes. So each quarter for 2 months is interacting with 5 teachers. So in the year he is interacting with so many teachers and with so many different age group kids and different communities as well. Like here homeschoolers mostly Americans, like 75%, but there are also Chinese, Russian and Indians. So he's also with different cultures. And now how Prabhuji was saying, he was relating his English class with the Arjun's Bhagavad Gita questions. Now he's learning in his history Greek mythology. He's going to a history class, and he learned first day about their god, like the king of the demigods. And he has a name, I forgot, he said a name. And he said, Mama, that's Indra for us. So it's the same. And he is relating the Greek mythology to Indian, our Vedic culture, how much similarities it is. And so it's not worried at all. It's like more advancing and
Yeah, so it seems like a win-win situation where you get all the subjects and the best teaching that you need to fill out gaps in your own teaching, and yet at the same time you can control the overall nature of your child's education and make Bhagavatam the center and give him a nice Krishna conscious education. And you sort of get the best of both, multi-generational socialization, different classes, academics, and really a tailor-made education that helps him grow in his strengths and come out a strong devotee.
I also learned that Stanford and other state colleges in California have actually increasing the percentage. Stanford and other state colleges like Berkeley and other colleges in California are actually have a percentage of quota for homeschoolers, and they are increasing it, because 2 weeks ago we attended a talk by one of the homeschoolers association here, and the lady was telling that some people do homeschooling just to get into those, because they are looking to have homeschooled kids, because they know that their IQ level is more than the normal kids.
Very good.
Yeah, and also the charter schools, another benefit is they arrange the field trips to very good centers like, Exploratorium in San Francisco or Monterey Bay Aquarium, all the different places, San Jose Tech Museum. So whole school, like at least 100, 200 kids go there, even though they don't know each other because they are in many different cities. But still, at that place, they go together. And also, there are many different Yahoo groups all over the Bay Area. I'm into at least 3 Yahoo groups where you get a lot of information, and also they have presentation days once a month where you go and anything, whatever you want to present, just for the improving their presentation skills. So like Balram did one time the presentation on peacock, and they had never thought of peacock, like here it's very rare. So it was so colorful and so many different like in the ISKCON we had many different peacocks, the species, right? And he took those pictures and he put it, and then finally he put Krishna and peacock feather on his head, and he said like Krishna also has peacock, and it's kind of in an indirect way of preaching them. And also he was thinking that, Mama, can I give them the material, because they learn 5 senses, right, in science class, and the 5 material elements in Bhagavad Gita. So he said, can I give the class like this in the Bhagavatam, how he's learning the creation of all those material elements? I said, that would be too heavy, just do it for some time. So it is not that we can preach in that way also, they are getting to learn about it. So it is very, very nice. No, we should try it out at least, like how we started, basically.
Yeah, and then for everyone, even those who are not doing homeschooling, it's very, very nice if you can come together as small groups of devotees who live in areas to organize preaching programs and events in local schools and places like that. And it's something that will be beneficial for all the kids, It will be really nice. So we hope that is one thing everyone can do together. And then also, even if your kids are going to school, if you can take time out at least on weekends to read with them Srimad Bhagavatam, that will make such a big difference in their life. These couple things are there which you can apply regardless of the situation. And then if you can work towards this kind of homeschooling that we're discussing, then that will be really, really nice. It seems Krishna has really given you such a nice situation here in the state of California, honestly speaking. I had a very different impression of California homeschooling before I heard all of this. In Idaho, we're lucky in another way where there's no rules and regulations whatsoever. Nothing. If you pull your kids off of school, no one will even know, or even mind, no one will come asking, nothing. But in some sense, this is even better because you get guidance, you get someone looking after you, you get funding to put your children through good tutoring and stuff like that, and you have special quotas for homeschoolers. In other words, they're treated not as off the grid, but really as real equal citizens of the educational system, and that's really, really nice. So at this point, what I was thinking is it's 5 o'clock, which is coming to our concluding time, and we've had a long day of seminar and so on. We've concluded the content that we want to give for today. And so what we can do maybe is we come back tomorrow. We have a full dedicated session just for question and answers. And hoping, especially if you're considering homeschooling, if you're one of the someone said aspiring homeschoolers, then please come, and then there's specific questions, issues, details, ideas you want to go deeper, specific subjects, concerns, problems, then we can address those in a much more detailed fashion, because the only agenda for tomorrow's session is set by all of you. Okay, so whatever questions you have, either leftover from today or new questions you think of tonight when you're discussing it at home or whatever, then please come back tomorrow. Tomorrow's session is what? 1 to 3.
1 to 3.
1 to 3. So we have 2 hours of Q&A available tomorrow. But at this point, I think we should conclude it so that everyone can keep to their schedules. We want to thank you very, very much for spending the day with us. We really feel grateful and fortunate that all of you have given us so much devotee association for this full day. We feel very fortunate that somehow Krishna has provided us the fact that we can be in the association of so many nice devotees for the full day and hear about what all of you are doing and what your questions are and your experiences. Thank you for your good questions, and thank you especially for listening so carefully. We do so many seminars, but this particular group was very good listeners. Everyone was completely focused the whole time and really participating and very expressive as an audience. Your expressions and reactions really keep us inspired. So thank you so much for today, and we hope to see you all tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji and Mataji, for coming here and giving us your real inspiration and encouragement. Just one point I wanted to mention, those who have not seen. When we were in Idaho, Boise, in that temple, I talked to, Mataji was not there, I talked to her husband, Anantrupa Prabhuji, Prabhuji's father. So, and he gave me one thing, that in Catholic Church or in Christianity, if you go, they will say, oh, the world was created by God. When? 10,000 years ago. They don't have answer. But if you come to other guys, they may not know and they will give some unconcocted ideas. But in ISKCON, at least we know when it was created. In any child, you can go and ask 432,000 years is the age of Kali. And when created, how created. So the answer is there within us in Srimad Bhagavatam, and he has given tremendous inspiration. And we have not seen him, but definitely you can imagine his potency and his power to encourage both of them to come over here and guide us. So please give one more big round of applause to them. So the last logistics is Mataji would stay for a couple of minutes. There are books also, those who like to take, one for your friends or an additional copy. She will sign the book for you, and we will, some volunteers will just keep it up back in our desk that side. And tomorrow 1 p.m. sharp, we'll have the seminar here till 3 p.m. Okay, any further announcements?
Hare Krishna. I think we ran out of Srimad Bhagavatams because all homeschoolers are reading Srimad Bhagavatam. BBT ran out of Srimad Bhagavatams, but we shipped some Srimad Bhagavatams from India, and I have a 44 volume sets. And in the class itself, we distributed 1-to-1 devotee, Amit Prabhu. So if anybody interested, please contact me or Malini Mataji or anybody. We have 44 volume set is available. We have only 6 sets. So if anybody interested, please let me know. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Yes, same, exactly.
Yeah, that's the plan, but I don't know, but I'm waiting for my husband.
199.
What's your name? You live in the area? How far is that?
Oh, I see. Okay. Sure. So you're.
I can get $5.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
I have
So that's one category of Mayavadi. And the second type way to identify Mayavadi is someone who identifies with intelligence individuals like us. Usually this takes the form of not I am God. Some hardcore Mayavadis will say that all the time. But the majority approach is to say what my own is. Kind of a mixed philosophy. Basically, some branch of life. So Krishna says, do not play daddy at home. You go to the center. There you can play with the music. So this is the center. Because we're all therefore when we there are people. It takes a lot of work to actually lead a person. Otherwise it becomes where is God? God is atheism is a It's just like the Prabhupada gave peace of the master before. When the master of a country comes, then you give him protocol just like you would give the president, because he's representing the country.